Okay, once again, this is Kevin Lockett for Akron '08. Today we're here with Judge Gippin, and we're going to talk about foreclosures. Judge Gippin and I had a very interesting discussion on foreclosures about a few minutes ago, and could you relay to our audience here your feelings on foreclosure in the Akron area and things that the Congress and the President could do to help the city of Akron slow down foreclosures and help people maybe stay in their homes?
And thanks for coming to talk, Kevin. I really appreciate the chance to do this. I am Judge Robert Gippin. And just to explain, I'm a Summit County Common Pleas judge, which means I'm a state court judge. I was originally appointed by the governor, and ultimately to keep my job, I would need to be elected by the voters in Summit County. I am different than a federal judge. A federal judge is appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate. A federal bankruptcy judge is appointed by the judges of the federal courts of appeals for 16-year terms. So we're in different kind of parallel systems. And what you were asking me that kind of led to this discussion is what difference would it make in terms of the workings of this court if depending on who would be elected president and who would be elected to the Congress. And the one area that would really make a difference has to do with mortgage foreclosures, this huge crisis that we're seeing all over the country. As much or more in Akron and Summit County as anywhere else. We have got currently pending in just my court alone, one of 8 common pleas courts, 160 foreclosure cases, which is about 1/3 of our civil docket. And that caseload has it's been high and stayed high, and no one sees any prospect in the near future that it's going to go down anytime soon. We do quite a lot in this court to try to deal with the problem. Certainly if anybody, if the homeowner responds to the lawsuit when there's a foreclosure filed, we refer every case that comes to a special mediation division that we've established here just for foreclosures to try to help resolve them. And even past that point, I think I and a lot of the judges will try to do everything we can to try to help resolve a case before we actually let it go to a foreclosure and a sale, and ultimately probably to the eviction of the people living in the house. It's a huge burden on this court in terms of the amount of time that takes away from other kinds of cases. Clearly it's a huge burden on the community. Everybody, not just the individual homeowners, but the neighborhoods where people live, where there are abandoned houses. It affects them. It's pervasive. And of course, it isn't to say that there's a lot of awareness of the problem and a lot of awareness on the national level. But if things could be done to try to alleviate the problem, it would make a huge difference to this court. Now, that could be anything from finding ways to use federal money to help to satisfy all or part of the indebtedness so that the foreclosure doesn't have to proceed, to doing things like changing the bankruptcy law so that the bankruptcy judges, the federal bankruptcy judges, would have more powers than they have now to try to deal with foreclosures and the renegotiation or settlement of the claims. Right now their hands are tied. There's really very little that they can do concerning the mortgages of a debtor in their courts. It would take quite a bit of the load off of this court, the Common Pleas Court, if some of those problems could be resolved at the bankruptcy level. So the problem that's being seen nationally, we see right here every day in this court. As I told you when we were talking before, I probably sign or see at least papers involving anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen new foreclosures or foreclosure cases every day, and they're constantly being filed as we speak. I'm sure that probably another 10 or a dozen cases are being assigned to my court by the clerk's office, just as we go today. Some things are good. I think the banks are working towards resolution of these things more than they were. I'm seeing more cases than I was before, where the way I see it, and it's always good news for me, and it usually happens on a Friday, like today is, where I will be given orders, to sign, to have a house not go to sheriff's sale. The sheriff's sales are held on Friday morning, and and this morning there were several orders which were brought into me last minute. The staff comes in, and of course, comes in with a save a house order, as we call it, and I gladly sign it. So I think the banks are doing more. Why they're not able to do more than they do now, I really couldn't say, but I think that increasingly we're going to be, if Congress and the President can't help with the problem, I think we're going to be taking a stronger and stronger hand in trying to see what we can do to resolve the problems.
Do you have any advice for people who might be coming, let's say their homes were foreclosed on and they're coming to court? Do you have any advice for them, what they need to bring or anything like that?
Well, I do. I mean, the main piece of advice is don't ignore the paperwork. I mean, unfortunately, many of the cases we've got, the homeowner never responds to the lawsuit papers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was talking with my staff about this before you came in. What do we do? I mean, we're pretty sure there's a homeowner there. We'd love to be able to try to involve that homeowner in negotiations with the bank, but the bank doesn't have anybody to negotiate with.
Right.
And we may be more proactive in trying to reach out to those people to still try to bring them into court, to see if the thing can be worked out. But the number one lesson is do not ignore those papers. I mean, I know when people get them, their heart drops. They want to ignore it. They think if they ignore it, it'll go away. It won't go away. They need to pay attention. The papers contain information about how to respond, in the court. I think at this point, both the courts and the clerk of courts are very, very user-friendly, very helpful to the homeowner that's trying to do something to respond to the lawsuit. But if they don't do anything, there's not much we can do to help. So that don't ignore the paper. Please respond. There are very good resources in town. A large number of lawyers have agreed to do pro bono foreclosure work, to help people who can't afford a lawyer. But again, if people try to ignore it, there's nothing that can be done to help. If they will respond, then there's a lot to be done to help. And that's the one big message I'd like to give is please, please, please respond to the paperwork when you get it.
Well, thank you very much, Judge Gippin. Is there anything you'd like to add? I know you're running for re-election.
Well, vote for me. The governor appointed me in April through it was an appointment made recommendation of a bipartisan commission. I practiced law, complex civil litigation for 35 years before I became a judge. I hope I've done a good job. I've made some improvements in how this court operates, particularly with use of electronics. But I'd like to think that I know what I'm doing here, and I've been a good judge, and deserve to be elected to a full 6-year term. So I appreciate any support I could get. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Les. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.